Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel, my show. It's whatever it is, Wednesday, and yesterday we had a stunningly sunny, hot day in Manchester, and so we took advantage of it and went out for the day. And we went to Knutsford and Wilmslow, both of which are about half an hour south of here. Knutsford is famous, I guess, for being the setting of Cranford. I'm not sure if they filmed the TV show there, but it's certainly the basis of Elizabeth Gaskell's stories or novellas that together make up the Cranford stories. And it always amuses me when we go, because we do the usual things of sitting in bookshops, cafes and charity shops, and you always hear people chattering on. Usually the ladies who volunteer in charity shops, and they yesterday they were certainly wittering on, and there's a bit of kind of badinage going on, and you realise these are the same characters, the same people as the women in Cranford 200 years ago or whatever. They're still there. Anyway, there was a book haul, and I'm going to go through the things that I stacked up. First of all, this arrived in the post quite recently. This is Criminal Pursuits, This Is Me. It's the second, I think, volume of these short stories, edited by Samantha Lee Howe. This time it's in aid of the Pink Ribbon Foundation. And I supplied a story for the previous volume a couple of years ago. I did a very bloody, violent, murdery short story called Flesh of a Fancy Woman that came out in this and ended up getting a Silver Dagger Award from the Crime Writers Association. And this year I've put a story in called Mad Money, and it's not so much a crime story. It's a kind of mystery story, I suppose, with slightly fantastic overtones. That's what I call it. And I wrote this a little while ago, alongside a couple of other stories that fit into the same world. Anyway, this is nice to be in this collection with Maxim Jakubowski and Raven Dane and various other people who write in similar genres. It's about 12 stories. So it's published by Telos. So Criminal Pursuits, This Is Me. Right, so the shopping yesterday. First thing I found, the first shop we went into, was mostly very commercial, very obvious fiction. That's the problem with lots of charity shops in this country, in that they dump the interesting stuff in a skip and it goes to landfill because they think nobody wants tattier, older, more obscure things, and that everybody wants commercial mass fiction that you could just get anywhere, which is such a mistake. But amongst all of that stuff was this. Doreen Valiente, Witchcraft for Tomorrow. This is a book from, I think, 1978 and reprinted years later. Oh God, there's photos. She was a witch. And she writes this series of books about witchcraft in the UK and about how it's both more prevalent, more up to the minute, and more respectable, I suppose, in a way, than you'd imagine. I've watched a couple of documentaries about these kinds of modern day witches, and the name Doreen Valiente always stood out. In one documentary I saw, it was talking about how she'd retired to Brighton, living in a flat, and she sounds so kind of auntie-ish and ordinary, but on the one hand, but at the same time she's talking about, you know, nude sabbats and dancing around in the woods and all this stuff about warding off the Nazis during the war with sex magic in the woods. All of it is somehow very funny to me, because it's that business of very kind of demure Englishness, very polite Englishness on the surface, and then all this rampaging wickedness and sexiness underneath as these people let their hair down and do peculiar things. It's also kind of uneluctably funny in the writing. When she talks about this being in the 70s, the age of Aquarius, this is in the introduction, she says, she gets into astrology, and she says, it has been called the sexual revolution. I can hear this for some reason in Maggie Smith's voice, so imagine that. It has been called the sexual revolution, the swinging 60s, the advent of the permissive society, and so on. Though a lot of it is simply the frankness of Uranus, bringing out into the open what was always there anyway, but discreetly hidden beneath a cloak of polite humbug. I love, childishly, I love jokes about Uranus. This bit about witches and their dancing around in the nude. At certain times of the year, the coven observed the fertility rituals, dancing in the nude. One of the witches was a very attractive girl, but some of the others were quite old. It's full of these kind of incidental, hilarious moments, especially when she looks back at Aleister Crowley's old friend Alan Bennett that he shared a flat with at some point in the 1890s. Now, I assume this isn't the same Alan Bennett we have now, writing plays and writing his journals in this kind of very mild-mannered way that he has. This is a different Alan Bennett, but we are told that he had a blasting rod with strange powers that he would occasionally let off. God knows what a blasting rod is. Anyway, it looks like this is going to be full of fun, with chapters on the old gods and witch festivals. Oh, and sex magic. It's the kind of stuff that's behind so many of the stories that I really enjoy, the Doctor Who stories like The Demons or K9 and Company. And, of course, the novels, the slightly silly novels of people like Dennis Wheatley. So I'm sure stories will spring out of this for me. Also yesterday, I picked up, all in one shop actually, a volume of this, The Best of Trek, again from the late 70s. It's highlights from the magazine of Star Trek fans. So they're kind of non-fiction articles a lot of the time. Mr. Spock, a personal memoir, it says, or An Evening with Gene Roddenberry. I love the kind of artwork as well, which is obviously dodging copyright issues. But it's a glimpse of Star Trek between TV shows at a point in time in the mid to late 70s when they didn't know how or when or if it was ever to come back. It was Star Trek's own wilderness years. At the same time, they had original novels coming out for the first time, and they had New Voyages, the volumes of fan fiction being published professionally as well. This kind of era fascinates me. It's kind of what Doctor Who looks as if it's going back into wilderness years, and there's something very heartwarming to me about TV shows that are still doing things when nobody's looking. The mass market's not looking. It's kind of Schrodinger's TV show. It's still happening somehow on paper. Right, now, a series that I want to get back to, I read the first of years and years ago and lost my copy, was Dragonlance. And yesterday I found volume 1, again from about 78 or something. So obviously that was the year that was in my head yesterday. Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman, volume 1, Dragons of Autumn Twilight, which supplements the copy of the second volume I got a couple of weeks ago, The Dragons of Winter Night. I love how thick and complete these books are. They're really chunky with these kind of fanzine-ish illustrations. Quite small print, but good chunky holiday-ish penguin paperbacks. And yesterday I also found Dragons of Spring Dawning, book 3. So I'm going to have some epic fantasy, I think, quite soon. This one's a bit, the spine's a bit knackered, which is a bit annoying. You want books like this to be quite hard wearing, but somebody split it so that the pages could just about fall out, which would be really annoying if you were reading something with missing pages. Anyway, looking forward to getting back into this world. I love these very literal covers with lots of characters hitting each other on the front. I think fantasy novels have to have very intricate covers with lots of characters doing stuff on the front. I don't like this vogue that's going about these days for very plain ones that just have a kind of sigil or a symbol on the front. That's really boring to me. It's meant to make them look more respectable somehow, but I love them when they're really about people just having a good old Barney, you know, hitting a dragon or something on the front. A feeling that I've got that takes me back to Terry Pratchett, and is it Josh Kirby? Yeah, I think so. Josh Kirby, who did the covers for his Corgi books, and I think they've changed these now to make them look more grown up somehow, although there's nothing not grown up about Josh Kirby's artwork. That was the thing that drew me into reading Discworld in the first place, back in, I guess, 1983, when I first read The Colour of Magic. I've read this maybe 2 or 3 times over the years. The last time was in a bound-up volume in about 2007, and I read the first 2 again. Another kind of abortive attempt to get into the whole series. I've read my way a certain way into it, maybe 4 or 5 books, but I always get stalled, and I don't know why. Maybe it's just not my thing. But I did enjoy the first few, I do remember that. And I remember Mort being one of the funniest things I'd ever read. And that's the 4th one. I rebought a copy of that recently, and for some reason it's clicked something in my head that I needed to re-get copies of the early ones with these covers, because I think they're just really nice. Corgi science fiction and fantasy, honestly, at that point in the early 80s, they were doing the Star Treks, they were doing, I think they did the Anne McCaffrey books as well, but they did so many things that I just really liked, and they were so colourful, the covers, and collectible, that they made me into a bit of a collector. And here I am buying this for probably the 3rd time in my life. I was put off Pratchett slightly when he came to UEA, and we had him on to read to an audience of 500, and we took him out for dinner, and he was slightly rude the whole time. That puts me off people, but never mind. I do want to read that again. At the moment, I'm in the middle of a Michael Ender novel, which comes from my book bag. What's it called? The Night of Wishes, which has been knocking about for ages on my shelves. I dipped into it at some point, didn't get on with it, but I thought, it's Michael Ender. I love the never-ending story. He only wrote 2 of the books, Momo, which I have read, and this. And it's in a lovely hippo fantasy edition from the 90s. Like Put a Sock in It Percy that I read a couple of weeks ago. I really like this whole series of hippo fantasy. They fit nicely against the point fantasy of the same time. Anyway, this is all right. It's funny. He's really funny. There's a wizard who's being spied on by his own cat, and his auntie, who's a rather large older witch, who's being spied on by her raven. Because as wicked witches and sorcerers, they're to blame for all the terrible things happening to the world in terms of pollution and the environment. And the animals have all got together and they're spying on these wicked people to try and stop them. That's the premise of this. And about halfway through, it's all coming out. Who's spying on who and why. So I'm on with that as a kind of nice light read. But yesterday I picked up a book from Waterstones, and I bought it for almost full price from Waterstones, which I kind of vow not to do, really. I try to buy things from places that aren't Waterstones. But then, as I keep saying, indie bookshops with new books are usually so snooty and annoying that puts me off. It was quite easy just to go into Waterstones and see the book that they were pushing at the moment, because it won it's shortlisted for the Women's Prize for non-fiction. I should check out the rest of that shortlist. I love contemporary non-fiction. I just have to say that. I love those books that are a bit memoirish and they're about one person's engagement with a subject which I, as a reader, might have no interest in, as far as I know, but the voice of the narrator leads me into the subject. I love that. And this leapt out in Waterstones when I went last week at some point, and I was flicking and looking at it. And then I did my tryout thing, which is to get home and read the excerpt that Kindle sends you. So it's about the first 30 pages usually, which is a brilliant amount for knowing whether you're going to read this book or not, whether you're going to enjoy this book or not. So I ended up reading all of that, loving that the night before, and on our day out, going into Waterstones and thinking, I've just got to get it. Chloe Dalton, Raising Hair, actually almost full price, because I get off 10% with my Society of Authors cards. Authors out there, you must join the Society of Authors so you can not just get access to all of their help and resources, but their 10% off card, which you get as part of your membership, and of course things like PLR, which means that you get the money from the library borrowings of your books. Anyway, side issue. Raising Hair, about this woman who lives in the country, and during lockdown she rescues a leveret, a newly born baby hare, from a field next to her farmhouse, and she brings it back to life. She nurses it, she gives it baby milk mixture, whatever it's called, and observes it and keeps it in the house with her, lets him out, and we are kind of privy to what a hare, this kind of piece of wildness, is actually like. It's not a bunny, it's not a domesticated animal. I'm only a little way in, a little way further than I read before, but I really like the way she describes things. This wild creature who should be bursting to go out comes and, when she's working and writing and typing, he comes and leans against her for company. Very touching. I've said it before, but I really like books about animals. Already this year I read the book about the whale that the long-distance swimmer finds in the ocean and befriends and has to get back to his mother. What was that called? Grayson. But little memoirs like that I really enjoy. The book about the Yangtze river dolphin as well, although that was very upsetting because they were going extinct, or they have gone extinct. So I'm discovering this whole kind of natural history side of myself that I'd forgotten about. I might have to investigate that further and see what other books about animals have been coming out recently. Okay, do say hello in the comments below, and do click all those likes and subscribe if you haven't. I'm still enjoying doing this channel. I've gone over time today because it's so kind of easy just to chat away to you about what I'm reading and what kind of books I'm bringing into the house. Too many books I'm bringing into the house, but I don't care. I don't mind if you don't mind hearing about them. Okay, everyone, I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.